Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park fans dripped in jerseys. Legacy bold, the Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channel X and on Twitch. And yes, that's right. The guy next to me is Zach from Sunny Days in Flushing. Obviously, you've seen him mostly with Chris, but he's hanging out and filling in for Chris on the pregame show. Zach, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, Rob. It was a nice homestand there. 7-2 homestand leading into what would be it's going to be a tough battle in the beginning of this road trip out west. But vibes are good. Confidence is high. Seeing some of the bats start to heat up. So looking forward to this. Looking forward to what's going to be a tough series. But hopefully we can take a couple there in LA.
Yeah, the vibes are good. Definitely with the homestand, 7-2 homestand, 8-2 in their last 10. It's just a lot of fun for the New York Mets and Mets fans right now. 15 games over 500, the high mark of the year. And look, as bad as they've been with runners in scoring position, they still found a way to get themselves 15 games over 500, tied for the best record in baseball with the Chicago Cubs. And they're back leading the NL East by a game. And look, it's game 60 tonight. Long way to go. We know how many we have. We have a whole lot of games to go. Things can happen quickly from the bad side to the good side. But so far, this team has been amazing with the limited amount of production they've got from a lot of their big guys and just overall performance offensively with runners in scoring position. I want to get your take on, besides the pitching, we know the pitching has been good, staff alone, but the Mets still finding ways to win and getting those big home runs. No. Because they haven't done it with the runners in scoring position. It's been mostly, here's a 2-run homer here, maybe a 3-run homer here, and they've been finding ways to win ball games late in games, especially when they're close. What are your thoughts on that, and how do you feel that how have they done this without the runners in scoring position at the number they're at right now?
It's weird because you look at when you think about with guys hitting with runners in scoring position, you think the first thing that's synonymous with this is clutch hitting. But the Mets, they've still found the ways, like you said, to provide in those clutch moments, even without the consistent production with the runners in scoring position. That's the big thing. Knowing when to step up at the biggest moment. Like we've seen Lindor have 2 walk-offs this year. Alonso has a walk-off. I think Starling Marte has a walk-off too. So they're doing it at the right time. They're not bailing out their pitchers. They're uplifting their pitchers when they need to. They haven't been able to do it consistently. We saw a little bit of that in this homestand. We saw them, consistently driving more runs. I think we scored a good amount of runs this homestand. So hopefully they can continue this going forward, because it's not going to be every game you're going to hit 400, 500 runners in scoring position. But if we can keep it to a minimum of 250 with runners in scoring position, like a 3 for 12 type of night, I think I'll take that with what we're getting with the pitching staff and the bullpen. It's just the 0 for 11 nights. It's the 1 for 12 nights. It's those that are killing us. Especially when you're leaving tons of runners out there and your pitchers are locking them down and you lose a close one, or you make it a nail biter when it doesn't have to be. It makes it a lot tougher. But if they can consistently start to produce a bit more, not even a ton more with runners in scoring position, just be middle of the pack, This team is going to win a ton more games.
Yeah, and that's the little bit of the frustrating part with this team is that they only have to be an average team with runners in scoring position. I mean, they would have probably 6 or 7, 8 less losses on their record, and I mean, we'd be talking about 45, 44, 45 wins, and it's I mean, we'd be running away with the best record in baseball. But again, baseball is baseball, right? It's never easy, especially when you root for the New York Mets. It's never easy for us. But overall, it's just amazing. Like, the pitching has been carrying his team the whole year. And it would be nice for the offense to carry the pitching at some point because, we're getting a guy like Paul Blackburn tonight. That's pitching, coming back from injury.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder the thought process with the Mets putting Blackburn in this game on the road in a hostile environment against one of the better offense in baseball. And you're going to throw him to the wolves, basically. And it just shows that Mendoza, Stearns, the coaching staff, they have confidence in this team overall that they're not worried about it. They want Blackburn to start today because it just sets the way they set him up through the rehab starts and the minor league starts. It's his day. And they're like, you know what? Let's start this 6-man rotation now. And the confidence that they have in the team itself, that they're not worried about putting Blackburn against the Dodgers in game 1 of this series. It's crazy to me.
It's an interesting spot for him, but I think the plan was always, once he was ready, bring him up, go to the 6-man rotation, because I think once Montas and Minaya are back, those two are gonna fill spots in the rotation. It's just a matter of who's gonna be there, and I think it's time to see what you got in Paul Blackburn. If he's gonna be better suited for the bullpen, or if he's just gonna be someone that's gonna sit down in AAA or find his way off the team. And so they need to put him in there at one point or another. So this ends up being a good timing for it, especially with how he pitched in his last 2 starts in his rehab. I mean, 2 great starts in a row. He pitched pretty well during his rehab stints. So it's good to see. It's not like he's coming in after getting shelled a bunch in AAA. So, and I think it just shows that Stearns had confidence in him from the get-go. He had faith in him when he traded for him. He was a controllable piece, and he's a solid pitcher. If he can keep us in it 3-4 runs, get us through 5 innings, I'd be happy with that. The bats just need to get going. That's the big thing. So,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I said that in the last show that I would take 5 innings of 3 or 4 runs. Honestly, I mean, who wouldn't sign for that today? Especially with the Rocky series, how the Mets didn't use their bullpen excessively like they did. Like they have done this season. It was 2 guys yesterday. It was the 2 guys the day before, and only 3 guys in the first game of the series against the Rockies. So they saved their bullpen by letting these guys go a little bit longer in Kodai Senga and Clay Holmes. And even Peterson didn't go as long as the other 2 guys. He still gave 5 2/3, and it saved the bullpen. And we needed that, especially with this 10-game stretch of no days off and having Blackburn knowing that he's not going to go probably more than 5 innings. We're hoping 5 innings.
That'd be great if he can go more than 5 innings, but get us to that mark. And we'll take it from the bullpen. Take it from there, especially with the day off too. The bullpen's very rested right now, which is good.
Yeah, and we're probably going to need, I would say, probably 3 or 4 guys today, most likely, depending on what Blackburn does. But it is so interesting that the fact that they're 15 games over 500, they have a plus minus different plus runs of 67, and there's still talk about the offense. Like, what the hell is going on? It's crazy to me because, like, look, Juan Soto's looking a little bit better at the plate. You see that confidence coming. Overall, everybody's talking about it. Pete Alonso with the 3-run bomb in the last game. It's just a lot of good signs from this offense. One thing that's interesting, somebody brought it up in the comments, Vientos not in the lineup again. And that is something that is starting to, like, put a little thoughts in my mind when it comes to Ronnie Mauricio, because he's going to come up very, very soon, in my opinion. Who's going to get the short end of the stick and get sent down is because it's obviously going to be Acuna or Vientos at this point. And I thought it was going to be Acuna because of the lack of playing time that they've been giving him. But now Vientos is barely getting any playing time. And I do wonder if they're deciding which one of those 2 guys are going to go down, either Acuna or Vientos for Ronnie Mauricio, because he's tearing it up in AAA.
He is. He really is. So he'll definitely find his way on this team sooner or later, especially if he keeps this up. Because I think that's the big thing for Mauricio. It's been the consistency, because you've seen the flashes with him just kind of take off in AAA. And even when he came up here, he was a spark plug, even though the numbers ended up not being so great at the end. When he first came up, he was electric. But with Vientos, he doesn't have any more options. So I mean, they would have to risk losing him or trading him somewhere if they wanted to send him down. So it's definitely going to be Acuna. I just find it interesting that he's not getting the DH spot. It's Jared Young, and I know we've heard Mendoza talk a lot about how he likes Jared Young's at bats, and I think that's the big thing. Trying to have someone that can take good at bats, someone that can work a count a little bit more than Vientos has been able to this year. Against someone in Dustin May who hasn't been pitching so well for the Dodgers this year. I think he came off an injury from last year, and he's he just came back up this year. So I think trying to find someone that can hopefully work that pitch count and get it up higher, as opposed to Vientos, who is kind of boom or bust. It's been big hit or nothing.
Yeah, that's the issue with Vientos right now. If he was providing a little bit more power, I don't think many people would be complaining about his average and just looking bad at the plate, but he hasn't been providing much power either. Mm-hmm. And with the no option for Vientos, again, it is a long shot that he'll get sent down. It probably will be Acuna if that's the case, but it is shocking that Young is a DH once again, and it's been Young's been in the lineup a lot DHing, and I know it's probably matchup because there's a right-hander on the mound with Vientos not playing. Like if Vientos was playing well, this would have been no conversation. He would be in the lineup no problem, batting fifth. Like that's probably fifth or sixth in the lineup. But it is looking like more and more that the confidence level with Mendoza and Vientos right now is not there, and I understand that because you got to win ball games, right? You got to get somebody that is looking like they have good swings at the plate. Jerry Young has done that, and that's something that, you got to play the hot hands. You got to play. I mean, I'm not going to call Young the hot hand, but he's doing a little bit better than Vientos right now. And, putting them behind Alonso in the 5 spot, it's a lot of confidence in a guy that, kind of a career minor leaguer, Yeah. So it's like, I do wonder, like, why is that the decision they're making, considering the fact that Beatty's hitting well? I would put him in the 5 spot. Taylor has been hitting well. McNeil has shown that he's been hitting pretty well. Alvarez is a lost cause, and that's why he's batting 9th. But I kind of feel like Young is kind of in that spot where it's like, you can't bat him 7th. Why bat him 5th? I don't know why, but I don't know. I'd rather not see him in the lineup, to be quite honest with you. But batting him 5th is a little eye-opening to me.
It's interesting. I think it's just to kind of stretch out the lineup, get someone with a little bit more power, you have a little more confidence in Beatty to kind of bridge from that middle of the order down to the bottom of the order. So I think that's more or less what he's looking at, not necessarily trying to stack all of his big bats up at the top of the order and then have, Jared Young kind of lead off the bottom half of the order with someone that you're not as confident with. So I see it there. It is interesting. I think I would probably rather Beatty be in the 5-hole, but he's been great, so I expect him to have a nice game. I hope so. I mean, aside from it was yesterday, so there wasn't a day off. Actually, I lied about that before. But aside from yesterday, he's been playing very well lately, and I have the utmost confidence in Brett Beatty at this moment in time. So
yeah, absolutely, Brett Beatty has been a revelation. I mean, he realized, it's my last chance. No options left. I got to perform, or they're gonna kick my ass off this team, and then I might be chugging along somewhere else in baseball. When it comes to Francisco Alvarez, I think this is a big time of a conversation for Met fans. They're talking about it in the chat right now.
Yeah,
he's lost. He's completely lost. I mean, he should be the backup at this point, if not getting his ass sent back down to the minors and figuring himself out. Not only the injuries, his power is basically gone. He swings at everything. There's no plan at the plate. He went from batting 5th to 6th to 7th to 8th. Now he's batting 9th. Like, he's one step closer to just sitting his ass on the bench and playing once or twice a week, with Terrence being the better catcher overall and the better hitter overall. What are your thoughts on Alvarez? Because, look, we were so excited about Alvarez being the starting catcher because he was young. There was so much hype about him. I mean, he was, ranked high in Major League Baseball rankings as top prospects. And, of course, he's been a dud. He had his moments early on when he first came up. He showed promise, and then he's just almost a complete zero. And I want to get your thoughts on Francisco Alvarez what do you think it is? Is it mental? Is it just no plan at the plate, or is it he's just a failed prospect?
I don't think he's failed. It's tough to say because we've talked about Beatty being a failed prospect, Vientos being a failed prospect. Now, obviously, Vientos having his struggles, but Vientos came through last year. He had a great year last year. Beatty's playing very well at this moment in time. So Alvarez at 23 years old is still so young and still figuring out how to approach the major leagues. And the injuries are probably taking a bit of a toll on him. I mean, two hand injuries are big, especially for someone catching behind the plate. That's going to wear on you. And then I think it's a bit between confidence and mechanics. I mean, you see, I think I've seen his swing change now like 2 or 3 times since being in the major leagues. And it's someone who just needs to find that rhythm and just has to get back to consistently producing, because we saw it at times. And when he first came up, but that second year when he took over the starting role, he played great that year. I think he had 20 something home runs that year. And then last year at times he was flashing, but off and on dealing with the injuries. So you kind of that's a wash year. He kind of just take it with a grain of salt. Like he'll be back, and then obviously starting this year with the injury, and at times he was hitting the ball well this year. He was working it to the other field, but now it's just that confidence is completely gone, and he just doesn't know what to do up there. And I think you just got to get back to put him in the 9-hole in a low leverage spot, at the bottom of the order, and let him just swing away. Let him get back to what he was doing. Let him swing for the fences. Because now I think he's just trying to think about it too much. Like, I don't want to swing, strike out every time I'm up here, but I also want to be able to produce with the power. So it's just trying to find that right balance, which he will find. He's too talented not to, I think.
Yeah.
You can't give up. I mean, Torrens has been great, and I think it should be a 50-50 split at this point, because I think you still need to get Alvarez's at-bats as long as he's here. And two, just he needs to find it. He needs to find it. It's going to happen. It happens to all major leaguers. It was happening with Soto. Just, it's been happening with him so far up to this point until he just recently broke out in the Rockies series. So he'll find it. It's just a matter of when, I think.
Yeah, it's a balancing act with Mendoza right now, because, you want to play Alvarez. You want to get in the reps because he's so young. But you also have to win ball games, right? You're a contender. 100%. Right, you're a championship contender. You can't just say, "Oh, we'll play Alvarez and let him hurt the team over and over again," while you get Torrens, who's been very good and probably one of our most clutch hitters on the bench. And Alvarez has been better defensively as a catcher, but Torrens has been outstanding. So I understand that balance and and I understand why Mendoza is kind of in between sometimes, when it's like, I want to play Alvarez. He should be the starting catcher, but when he's a zero, because he's batting ninth, but those RBI opportunities are going to find him. Like it's baseball, right? You play baseball, you watch baseball all your life. No matter where you are in the lineup, those RBI situations are going to find you regardless. And you know what? We're talking about it. Guaranteed tonight in LA, he's going to have an opportunity to drive in some runs, and it's going to be up to him to get it done. And we know what's going to happen. And then the next show we do, everybody's going to talk about, Alvarez didn't come through, or he did come through. And that's just baseball. That's why we love it, because it just happens like that.
Exactly.
You can't hide in baseball.
No.
Unless you're not in the lineup, you can't hide, and it's going to find you. And
exactly.
That's the fun thing about it. But, with Nimmo back in the 2-hole, that's my favorite spot for him.
I like this.
I like that. Nimmo, I've talked about this for a while. I think, when Soto was batting 2 and Alonso was 3, and God knows whoever was batting 4, it was Nimmo mostly, but Vientos there. I like Nimmo in the 2-hole because I think the mentality of Nimmo, not trying to do too much in those 4-5 spots where he's probably thinking, I got to be a run producer. I got to be a big home run guy. Now, you know what he's got to do in the 2 spot? Get on base.
Yeah.
Any means necessary. And this is the perfect spot for Nimmo, in my opinion. And I think if somebody actually is paying attention, and I can see we're all are, because I know, you perked up with the Nimmo. You said you liked it. A lot of people like it. This just makes more sense for Nimmo. 100%. Nimmo. I love the fact that Nimmo's number 2.
100%. We've seen him over the past, year and a half, 2 years now, where he's shown that he has the power. He can be a legit home run threat and, have 20 plus home runs in a year, but that's not necessarily what his game was coming up. He's someone that could hit 20 home runs, but he liked to work the counts. He liked to get on base. He's not a big base stealer, but he would find a way on base, whether it was by the walk or just driving the ball the other way and with a little single. So it's good to have him in the 2 hole because I think it allows him to play a little bit more loose and not think of himself as the run producer in the middle of the order. He can play his game, but he's going to get the opportunities with Lindor at the top of the order. Lindor's going to, find his way on first, steal a base or get a double ahead of Nimmo. And Nimmo's going to get those opportunities to drive in runs. And he's going to run into some pitches where he can drive out of the park and swing for the fences there by all means. But it's good to have him there as another person that can get on base in front of Soto, in front of Alonso, and then whoever's in the 5th hole. Tonight it's Young, but lately it's been Beatty who's been driving in runs. So they're going to get their RBI chances. Leave it up to them where they have to figure out how to get the runs in. And Nimmo, just get on base. And if you can run into an RBI, you can run into a home run, go for it. But don't have that be what your laser focus on your only goal is to be in the lineup, because that's not what his game is built around.
Yeah, 100%. And I hated Nimmo in the cleanup spot. I'm okay with him in the 5 spot. I just think the mentality that he presents himself at the plate is just not good in those spots. I think he tries to do too much, and it takes away from the best part of his game, is what you talked about. Getting on base, not trying to do too much with the ball, have no problem slapping the ball the other way, getting a single, being a gap-to-gap type of hitter, and, lean into one every now and then. And, he can easily hit 18 to 20 home runs. I think he probably felt pressure to do more than that. And he doesn't need to, at least at this point. When everybody was struggling, Nimmo was the prime target because he was the cleanup hitter. And that's when we fell into a spot where it's like, oh, Nimmo, here we go again. I mean, it was Nimmo and Vientos that were leaving so many men left on base the first couple of weeks of the season. It was so glaring. And it's like, well, yeah, they're not doing it. But, I don't expect Nimmo to be, a 30 home run guy with 90 or 95 RBIs. I just never seen him as that. And, Vientos was kind of unfortunate because he should be that guy that is 25 to 30 home runs. But to have Nimmo to do, or try to have Nimmo do that, just never made sense to me. I think Nimmo is just such in a better spot in that 2 hole, and I think it's going to make the lineup better. And we've seen it. The runs per game has been slowly increasing, and it's been since Nimmo been in the number 2 hole. Not saying that Nimmo has been great; he's been better than what he was. But I think it helps Lindor, it helps Soto and Alonso, having those guys on base and having run producing opportunities for Juan Soto and Pete Alonso.
No, 100%. And it's good to see Soto getting more RBI chances, because even though his running numbers with runners in scoring position have not been good, I think he doesn't have as many opportunities as guys like Lindor or Alonso or Nimmo and Vientos had. I think they were getting the lion's shares of at bats with runners in scoring position. Now with Soto in the 3 hole, he's going to have more of those opportunities, and he's too good of a hitter not to be producing in those situations. Obviously, got off to the rough start. And, whether it was the pressure from the contract, acclimating to life here in Queens, hearing it from both ends, Mets fans that were booing him, the media, Yankees fans that were, that have turned against him and turned him into enemy number 1. So, but now he's able to loosen up, and he's being forced into these situations now, which is good. Which is what he needs. Diamonds are made under pressure, and, he is a diamond. He's a diamond in the rough. He's a player you don't see too often, and he's here for the next 15 years, and he's going to produce for us. We saw it in that Colorado Rockies series. He was great.
We're all going to be old men the time his contract ends. But yeah, I agree. Like the consensus around, look, everybody is frustrated with the start of Juan Soto as Met fans, but the consensus was it's Juan Soto. He's going to figure it out. Like, you're too good of a hitter to not be that. Like, you've been that way your entire career. He's just not going to fall off the face of the earth, right? This isn't a Jason Bay situation. No. This isn't a Roberto Alomar situation, Jeremy Benitez, Mo Vaughn, whoever you want to, whoever you want to bring up that has been a failure. That Bobby Bonilla, let's bring him up too. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's because people are talking about, oh, he's looking like Bobby Bonilla because he's not, he's acting like he don't care. He's not interested. Come on, like this is his first time in his career that he's dealing with a huge contract on his shoulders. And now he has to be the guy. Like, that's a huge difference than, being on your last year of your deal with the Yankees and having Aaron Judge hit behind you. Like, it's a huge difference, and again, that's not excuses. He needs to be better. We all know that. But you can see what his issues were, right? He changed his stance a little bit. He was crouching a little bit more. There's a lot of things. He was late with the fastball. He was late with his bat speed that still hasn't been there from last year. There's a lot of things you can see that he was uppercutting more. So that is something that, like, the little things he just has to adjust with, and he knows that. Nobody has to tell him that. He knows. He talked about it, recently in one of the interviews that he had. So I'm not worried about Juan Soto. And sooner or later, this lineup's going to take off. I think we all can agree with that for sure. Because this lineup was supposed to be carrying this team. Like, nobody was talking about, the pitching was going to be so damn good that, they're going to carry this team for the first 60 games of the season. Nobody was thinking that. The bullpen.
Sure enough, they have.
Yeah. And the bullpen, we all expected to be pretty good. The starting rotation, in my opinion, was going to be a question mark. I want to get your thoughts on the pitching staff, or at least the starting rotation as a whole. Are you going to be concerned? Because this is my concern going down the road, and I know this is 2 months down the road when it comes to the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Are you concerned that a lot of these guys like Clay Holmes, who never went past the 90 innings limit in his career, do you worry about him getting to that mark and still pitching well? Kodai Senga not having a lot of innings last year because of injury, and now that puts more pressure on Mendoza, worrying about the innings, using that bullpen a lot more, and other guys in the rotation as well, like Montas and Minaya, who are going to be very careful not extending them for the first couple of months they come back.
I think with the way this pitching staff is built, they're not really going to have to worry about it, because I think at a point in time, if you think Holmes is reaching an innings limit, an inning cap where you guys had him at, or you see him starting to wear down throughout the season, you can easily just push him into the bullpen, or and have someone else take over in the starting rotation, because in hopefully a month's time, we're talking about potentially 8 guys that could all be starters on this team, and that all might be deserving of it. I know Tyler McGill has kind of fallen out of favor a bit, but he's still someone I have faith in. I think he's too good of a pitcher. Griffin Canning, someone who's been kind of out of nowhere and has pitched very well this year. He's someone that could find his way into the bullpen as well. So I think you have guys you can flex in and out of the rotation to keep other guys fresh. For Clay Holmes, he's been so good. I mean, even yesterday with was it yesterday? Yeah, where he let up the 2 home runs. It was 2 bad pitches. It was 2 bad pitches. He obviously let up the 3 home runs, or the 3 runs and the 2 home run with the 2 home runs. But otherwise, his pitch efficiency was great. He could have easily gotten out of the 7th inning, could maybe even worked into the 8th with how well he was pitching yesterday. And I think you've seen him get more confident with being in that starting role, and something I expect to carry over and continue throughout the season. Maybe there's a point when like I said, he needs to find his way into the bullpen just to limit those innings to, make sure he doesn't tire down, so we have him in the playoffs. But I think there's enough there, especially, not only the guys that are proven major leaguers, but guys that are knocking at the door, and Blade Tidwell, Brandon Sproat, Nolan McLean, guys that could all come up and, shoulder some of the load if need be. And I think it's been built in a way where you won't really have to worry about it. It's just a matter of who's going to be in that position, who's going to be in the starting rotation come end of August, beginning of September. Are we going to have to move guys to the bullpen, or are they just, are they dealing and they're not showing any signs of fatigue? So.
Yeah. So far, so good through the first 59 games of the year, going into the game 60. Mm-hmm. And, with Blackburn coming back, and obviously Blackburn might be a stopgap, like you said, for Montas and Minaya. They're going to a 6-man rotation. So everybody's going to be getting extra days off, right? They're going to get an extra day off in almost every one of their starts, maybe even more with off days. So they're going to a 6-man rotation on the thought process of, all right, if these guys can get an extra day, I'm not worried about them going that extra inning in a ball game. I'm not worrying about their inning limit, because they're going to get that extra day that, a lot of these guys usually don't get. The 6-man rotation was to set up to protect Kodai Senga, right? Yeah. That was obvious, because he can't pitch on a 5th day. His numbers are terrible. Having 4 days of rest and pitching on the 5th day. But it could be a blessing in disguise, the 6-man rotation, because of Clay Holmes, because we don't know what he's going to do when he hits that high limit mark, the high inning mark of his career. We don't know, right? He can easily not, fume out, and then you would have to worry about, is he going to go to the bullpen? I said this from the beginning of the year. I always thought Clay Holmes is going to end up in the bullpen, to be quite honest. And again, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world, but I always felt that only because we seen it last year, right? Guys that hasn't pitched a lot of innings, they eventually broke down. Now it took them to the NLCS, and I think we can have a lot more problems if it would be great if they can
get us back there. Yeah,
correct. And you saw them got gassed in the NLCS, right? They had nothing left. Mania wasn't as good. Severino wasn't as good. That is what it is, right? It's baseball.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about that. I just don't want us to have that same situation again. And hopefully, with these guys coming back and they're being healthier, hopefully they're not going to get to that point where these guys fume out. And, obviously the trade deadline has a lot to do with that, because I still believe the Mets are going to need a starting pitcher that, some type of one guy that can throw some innings here, not a Blackburn that, basically never pitched in the postseason, stuff like that. Somebody that can actually help this rotation. And, that's down the road. We're not really worried about that yet. But I always tend to worry about that because, I haven't really been with you on shows, so I just wanted to get your thoughts and be a little broad. And I know people saying that I'm always negative. It's not about being negative. It's about thinking about the future when a lot of people don't have to worry about it right now, right? We're not worrying about that because we're 15 games over 500. But it's a talking point because 2 months from now, we're going to have an idea of what we're going to need at the deadline. And maybe it won't be starting pitcher, right? I hope that everybody pitches great in this rotation and has no problems going over the innings limit. And then, we're laughing to the bank and, talking about rings. But
be great.
It would be. It would be nice. But, it is a talking point. And I know people love to get on me because they say I'm negative. I understand. I get it. But I rather bring it up or just ignore it, because when you ignore it, and I'm not saying the Mets ignoring it, that's not fair to them, right? They know the situation that they might have to deal with these guys' innings limit, right? Kodai Senga pitched 7 innings last year. Clay Holmes didn't pitch more than 90 innings in his career. Like, it's things that they obviously know and have to worry about. And I just want to bring it up because it's a possibility.
No, yeah, it's something that needs to be, talked about. I'm sure Stearns and Mendoza, there's an open line of communication there, knowing, how far are we going to push these guys, and where are we going to, start to limit them, or are we just going to keep pushing on them and leaning on them? I think for Holmes specifically is someone that if he finds his way into the bullpen come August or September, just to, make sure he's fresh for the postseason. It's not a demotion of any sorts. It's just, you haven't been here before in your career, so we need to make sure you're good for the postseason, because he's been, I think he's been our best pitcher. I know the numbers, you might look at the numbers and they're not, as good as Senga's, but I think he's looked better than Senga. I think Senga, and obviously Senga's another one who hasn't pitched much in his career. Obviously, his rookie season, I think he hit 150, 160 innings. Last year, he was injured all year and pitched, 7 innings, or I think it was 5 2/3 in the regular season, another like 3 in the postseason. So that's someone who he's going to find his way to some sort of limit, whether it's an innings limit, a starts limit, something of the sorts. And then Griffin Canning, someone who hasn't been, a great pitcher. He was a good prospect at one point, but, last year is statistically the worst pitcher in baseball. And he's never really been in the, in the limelight. He's never been someone who has been looked at as a top 3 guy in a rotation. So I think he's going to find his way, whether it's back into the minor leagues. I think he does have an option, if I'm not mistaken, or into the bullpen. Something's going to happen, and it's not going to be necessarily a demotion or because it's a negative. It's just because we have someone in Mania who's going to have a spot when he comes back. Montas was signed here on a deal where he's going to be a starter when he comes back. So it's a good problem to have, honestly, at this point.
Sure.
We're talking about guys, that are pitching well being moved into the bullpen because they need to be, because of an innings limit, because we want to make sure we're as sharp as possible come September and October.
Yeah, and it is a good problem to have. We just hope that we're not using them because, oh no, we got to throw this guy in the bullpen because he can't do it anymore as a starter. But overall, I mean, it's hard to kill this rotation because they've been excellent. And the one guy I don't worry about when it comes to innings is Griffin Cannon. Because he's thrown innings
Yes.
year after year. He's throwing 160, 155, 170. It's just he hasn't been good. Now he's been good, and hopefully he can give us those innings while being good as well. And not saying that Griffin Canning is going to be as good as this all year,
All
which
season,
that would be nice. But it is going to be so fascinating when Minaya and Montas comes back in this rotation. Like, there's decisions to be made. You talked about it. It can be anybody. Like, obviously, maybe David Peterson and Kodai Senga is the only one that might be untouchable. Everybody else
and
might
Clay Holmes right now, personally.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, well, I agree. But you know what? Clay Holmes has the most experience in the bullpen. So, they can look at that. I know they don't probably want to do that, but it's going to be so fascinating to see what they're going to do. And I know we're getting very broad here in the talking to everybody in the comments. It's just that, I don't see Zach very often. Chris has more shows on him than I do. So I just want to get his, mind on things and see what what's going on. Obviously, I see Chris and him, talk all the time, but to pick his brain a little bit, because different opinions are always great. I'd love to have different opinions. I don't care if I'm wrong 99% of the time. That's great. Your opinions matter just like everybody else's matter. So I just like to pick your brain on all that wide spectrum. So
we'll see it soon too. I think Montas is pretty close. I think he's had 2 starts in Brooklyn, 3 starts in Brooklyn, and now he was moved into AAA. So he's on the cusp of joining this rotation. And I see. I think it was Todd Licata. He just said Montas has to outpitch McGill or Canning to stick. I think right now he's taking Blackburn's spot. I think unless Blackburn comes out and shoves over the next 2-3 starts before Montas is back, that's Montas's spot. And I think something's going to give. I think Montas is going to find his way in the rotation. Stern signed him for a reason. He thinks he can fix something there, just like he thought he could fix something with Griffin Canning, just like he thought he could work on something with Clay Holmes and turn him into a starter. Both of those things have worked. So he's going to find his way here. And then I think it's more of a matter of what happens when Minaya comes back and then what happens down the stretch, because you can go and send someone like Tyler McGill down to AAA, call Blackburn, move him to bullpen or whatever, and they can just kind of come back and fill in spots in the rotation if you need to give Clay Holmes a couple starts off. You need to give Kodai Senga a start or 2 off, something along those lines. But as of right now, I think Griffin Canning and David Peterson are the only guys you can kind of rely on to pitch a full season, barring any injuries. It's just a matter of who is going to be there come September. Because I think you can look at Peterson, Senga, and Minaya are the 3 that are definitely going to be there. Holmes, if he shows no signs of breaking down, he'll be there. And then it's just who is in that 5th and maybe 6th spot.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because, like, when it comes to guys that we might worry about, or, because look, Montas, you said it, right? He's getting $17.5 million. He's going to be in this rotation.
Oh yeah.
Somebody's getting kicked out. It might be, somebody that people like, like you said, Griffin Cannon. It's a possibility. Not saying that it might happen, but you said the guys that are going to be a mainstay in this rotation probably not going to get kicked out, obviously. But, is it a good problem to have? Well, they better pitch well. If
as
they
of right now, yeah.
Yeah, because if they don't pitch well, everybody's going to be clamoring for guys like, hey, bring Clay Holmes back in the rotation, or bring Griffin Cannon back, or McGill, or whatever. And depending on who's going to be pitching well or not pitching well, and you want to switch that around. But again, that's down the road, at least maybe 2-3 weeks maybe for Montas to come back, and then we'll see what happens. But like you said, if Blackburn pitches well, you're not going to take him out of the rotation. Like, you're just going to have a harder decision to have. And, this is what you're going to have to do when time comes. But, it's not our problem. It's Mendoza's problem. We just talked about it. So to finish up the stream overall, obviously we got these late games on the West Coast against the Dodgers. We know how good their offense can be. I mean, we've seen them, beat up the Yankees for 2 games and embarrass them in the first 2 games of the series. We know how good their offense is, but the Mets at Citi Field basically control this offense. Obviously Mookie Betts is not in the lineup most likely for this series, if I'm not mistaken, but he's not in the lineup tonight. Obviously you got Ohtani, Hernandez, the Met killer and Tommy Edman. They got the rookie. I know I did the typo there. He's not in left field. He's a catcher in Russian. There's a lot of really good hitters in this lineup. We know about Freddie Freeman, another Mets killer. What do the Mets have to do in this series to win it, to win this series, 3 out of 4, or even a split for that matter?
I think right now, what they need to do is they need to get to that bullpen. They need, not only do we need to get into the Dodgers bullpen early, we need the Mets to get to their bullpen fairly unscathed, because I think the bullpen is the backbone of this team. They've been phenomenal. I mean, between Brazoban, Reed Garrett, Edwin Diaz, Kranick's been good at times. Stanek, I know he's been a bit up and down lately, but I think he's still a very good pitcher and is going to be great. Get to the bullpen with, close game, a slight lead, whatever it may be, and let them take over for us. Because I think this series is going to wear down our bullpen. Not necessarily in a bad way, but because the Dodgers are just such a good lineup, and they were able to keep them in check in New York over Memorial Day weekend. So hopefully they can do the same here in LA and just come out of this with a split. Because if they split the series 2-2, you win the season series 4-3, and if it does come down to a tie, come postseason time, you have home field, you have the tiebreaker for home field advantage. So that's what you need to do right now if you're the Mets. Think about winning 2. Anything else on top of that's gravy.
Yeah, and you talk about tiebreakers. It's a big deal. You don't play the Dodgers anymore, right? You're early in June and you're done with the Dodgers, which is great. You do got the Padres still. You got the Giants, and look, you split this series, and again, everybody wants to be greedy. 3 out of 4, we're gonna all love that. But, going into a hostile territory in Dodger Stadium is not going to be easy. They play very well at home. It's going to be tough. But you also face the Rockies after this. Mm-hmm. So if you split and then you go to Colorado, take care of business there, guess what? You had a really good road trip, and then you'll be coming back home. And, that's when you face your division rivals coming up not too long after that. And we'll see how that goes. And hopefully the Mets are still in the NL East lead. And, getting a little gap in that first place area with the Phillies and the Braves even more, because the Braves are looking like they're falling apart, but you can never count
them. They are.
Yeah, it is crazy. The unfortunate, it's not unfortunate because we're happy about that, but it is interesting to see that they got back to 500 and then they're slowly coming back down. The Nationals even passed them in the NL East. So it is so interesting to look at with the NL East. Right now it's the Phillies that are right up on our asses, but I really think the Mets are going to play well in this series against the Dodgers. I think sweep, always winning that last game at home, always energizes a fan base. Not only did we sweep, I know it's the Rockies, they suck, they're terrible, worst team in history, but sweeping your last series at the homestand, winning that last game before you go on the road to face a really good team, it gives you a lot of enthusiasm. It makes you excited. They're at the high mark of the season record-wise, 15 games over. There's all positivity going into this series, going into this game. Now, again, nobody's excited about Paul Blackburn, but guess what? The Mets are 15 games over 500. They beat the Dodgers at home 2 out of 3. So Met fans are feeling good right now. I think we are. And overall, I just want to beat. I can't stand the freaking Dodgers. I'm sick of them. They're like the. I would say what team I can really picture is it's like one team that act like they've won World Series or won championships year after year. And they were in the Mets boat not too long ago when they haven't won since '88 before, the COVID season. And then last year, so they're more annoying now because they won. And it's like, I'm just sick of them. And I just want the Mets to beat them. And I feel like if the Mets play their game, they could beat them because of the pitching that controlled them at Citi Field. If the pitching pitches well against the Dodgers, I think the Mets are going to do very well in this series.
Oh yeah, we should do really well. We're avoiding Yoshinobu Yamamoto this series. He pitched yesterday against the Yankees, so we're avoiding him, which is nice. And that starting rotation hasn't been too good for them. They're dealing with a lot of injuries. The Dodgers, Roki Sasaki's out, Glasnow's out. And, there's nothing really I'm too worried about, in terms of starting pitching from the Dodgers at this moment in time. The bullpen's scary, but if you can tag some runs, you can tag these starters for a few runs early on in the game and take control early on. I think that just plays into the Mets' hands where they're able to then, add on with the lineup here and there if they can, and then let the bullpen take over in the late innings. And that's what the Mets want to do. They want to get down to, they want to get into the 6th, 7th inning with the lead and let the bullpen shut them down. Because that's what when they're at their best, that's what they're doing. So, don't have to fight your way back against that Dodgers bullpen. Get your runs early and then and then take it from there. And hopefully we can wear down that bullpen a little bit. You know, they had 3 games in a row against the Yankees right before us, so hopefully they're a little bit worn down right now. I know I think they had to come in early yesterday because Yamamoto didn't pitch too late. So, you know, wear them down. So by the end of this series, you know, you're pitching against a depleted bullpen. You're hitting against a depleted bullpen. And that's what you got to do this series. It's going to be a grind, but go out there, win 2, and go to Colorado with your heads held high, and then beat up on them. That's all I got to say.
Exactly, right. And look, get the lead to the bullpen. That is the whole idea right now. And it would be nice if the Mets jump out early to a lead in this game, you know, especially with Blackburn on the mound. Because again, we talked about it. 5 innings, 4 runs. We'll take that. You know, I don't expect them to throw, you know, 6 innings of 2 runs here. I don't expect that at all. He's probably going to give up runs. I mean, we all signed on down the line. If it's 6 innings, 2 runs, I mean, some of us might fall on the floor if he actually does that. But you know, give me 5 innings, 4 runs, and I think the Mets have a chance to win a ball game. Keep this game close. The Mets have shown, even with the lack of runners in scoring position that they have not done, they still finding ways to win late in ball games in close games. So make it close, get the lead to the bullpen, and shut it down. And hopefully we're talking about a Mets win either later today or tomorrow on a show. Zach, I appreciate you filling in for CP. Any final thoughts in this series and overall with the Mets?
Final thoughts, just play some good ball. Let's shut up some of these Dodgers fans. You know, they're not on top of baseball right now. Right now, the Mets are on top of the NL. The Tigers are on top of the AL. So let's put them in their place. Let's win a few ball games. Hopefully we can come out of the series with 2. 3 would be phenomenal. And let's win this season series, and let's escape LA with a few wins, and, you know, have an easy one in Colorado.
Yeah, 100% agree. So guys, enjoy the late night game in LA. If you're staying up, congratulations. I will be listening to it at work. Once again, thanks Zach for coming in for a CP on this pregame show. Enjoy the game, guys. Yeah, absolutely, man. Have a great night. Let's go Mets, and we'll see you next time on the Amazing Mets pregame show, guys. Have a good night. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets. Thanks, everyone.
Seven train rumble, headed to the field. Orange and blue vibes, the energy revealed.